Okay, thank you everybody for coming. I think everyone knows me, just in case. I'm Paul Couchman, I'm the Secretary of SCCTU, I'm also the Secretary of UNISON. I'm going to say 5 minutes, a few words about International Workers' Memorial Day. Then I'm going to ask for 2 minutes silence, and then it is really up to you if anyone else wants to say any words. It's open to you if anyone feels they need to say anything. So I'm not going to keep people for very long. In 1989, the AFL-CIO, effectively the American TUC, declared this day, April the 28th, Workers' Memorial Day, in memory of the hundreds of thousands of workers killed and injured on the job every year. Since then, trade unions, governments and municipal authorities across the world have marked this day. And this is the first year that Surrey County Council and the trade unions have held a joint commemorative event. Hopefully this will now become a fixed day in the county calendar. The International Labour Organisation, ILO, a United Nations agency, currently estimates that some 2.3 million workers around the world die in work-related accidents or diseases every year. That is over 6,000 deaths every single day. Worldwide, there are around 340 million occupational accidents and 160 million victims of work-related illnesses every year. The ILO updates show that the levels of accidents and ill health at work are actually increasing. In the UK, in the first half of the last century, deaths at work were far too common, particularly in the heavy industries such as mining. Hundreds of workers would be killed in single, possibly preventable accidents. Most people have heard of the Aberfan disaster, where a waste tip from Merthyr Vale Colliery slid down a mountainside, killing 144, including 116 school children, as their school was engulfed. But many, many more incidents of workers killed at work are less well documented. There is a very good historic list on the TUC website if people do want to go and have a look at the history of workplace accidents. In addition to these major incidents, hundreds of miners succumbed to lung disease every year until the late 1960s. In the 21st century, workers are still suffering from health and safety hazards from years ago. The number of deaths linked to asbestos exposure has risen tenfold since 1974. There are currently more than 5,000 asbestos-related deaths per year. When I was much younger, I worked on the railways and I was a shop steward in the National Union of Railwaymen, the NUR, now the RMT. And during my training, I learned that dozens of railway workers died every single year after being hit by trains while working on the tracks. Work can be a very dangerous place. Emergency services. I was hoping to see the fire brigade shooting here. Obviously they're busy at the moment, but they put their lives on the line every time they go out to work. There's a new awareness of other risks too. Since 2010, the number of instances of stress, depression and anxiety at work has shot up. And there are many other common work-related illnesses and injuries, not necessarily associated with single-site tragedies. And obviously, most recently, there have been over 160,000 deaths in the UK from COVID-19. And the death rate is nearly twice as high if you come from an economically deprived or an ethnic minority background. We all know people who were taken by the pandemic, but it is as yet unknown how many of these were exposed to the virus at or via their place of work, or whether substandard or a lack of PPE was a factor. A year ago today, on the 28th of April, TUC representatives actually joined the COVID Bereaved Families for Justice campaign at a memorial like this at the COVID Memorial Wall in London. It's estimated that in the UK, at least 20,000 people die from injuries and illnesses related to their job every year. That's at least 20,000 families missing a parent, child or sibling. The workforce and the wider community also bears the knock-on effects from those deaths. That's why we all have a responsibility to ensure that health and safety is seen as more than just an add-on to everyday business, or a bureaucratic tick list to be checked. We all have to take responsibility for ourselves and for those around us, making sure we look after one another. This is even more achievable when we are organised in the workplace, when we join together in trade unions to campaign for safer working conditions. The unions have a long, proud history of not only helping our members when tragedy and hardship strike, but also of using our collective voice with the employers to try and ensure that these awful accidents never happen in the first place. Work should be a safe place. Trade unions have made health and safety at work a priority since our inception, and we have over time secured legislation to protect workers, compensation to support victims financially, and on a workplace level negotiated protections to make work safe. The Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 was a breakthrough. It put responsibility on both the employer and the employee to ensure the health, safety and well-being of individuals across all sectors. It led to the creation of the Health and Safety Executive, the HSE, and the HSEU poster that you see, or should see, on the wall of every workplace is the result of the work of trade unions over many, many years. What we all want and what we're fighting for is a society where work-related injury, ill health and death are seen as socially unacceptable, in the same way that domestic violence and drink driving are. Trade union reps are playing a key role in making this happen. So we're facing severe challenges: the cost of living crisis, increased international strife, the pandemic. But all of these are diminished if we do not have our health, our safety and our lives. We must ensure that health, safety and welfare never slip down the list of our priorities. We know that work is safer with a union. If you're not a union member, join one today. If you're already a union member, consider becoming a safety rep, continuing our proud tradition of remembering the dead but fighting for the living. I now hold a 2-minute silence where people can reflect on people that they've lost or anything they want to think about. And then if anybody wants to say a few words, I'll leave it open to you if you want to say anything.